Hi everyone, welcome to my talk today. This is the research that I and my colleague Chen, who presented this morning on another topic, we did this research, and this talk is about Vietnamese cybercrime threat landscape. So we're gonna see that what is happening in that space in next 30 minutes. So a short intro about me that I work as a security researcher at Cisco Talos, and I'm based in Singapore. And Joy, my colleague, he is based in Taiwan. So today we will just take a glimpse on what Vietnamese cyber crime landscape is, and then we go through two case studies of their intrusions and campaigns, and what are the techniques or malwares that they have used in their campaigns. And then we take a look about the attribution, that how we found them related to their origin in Vietnam or the Vietnamese cybercrime groups, and then some takeaways. So, the Vietnamese cyber threat landscape has evolved rapidly in recent years, and they have made a shift from regionally focused cybercrime activities to a broader, more global threat profile kind of, and they have expanded their impact globally. And we have also seen the threat actors are using their own malwares or like stealers or some of the scripts that bespoke to their own group. And also, they often use some advanced tactics and techniques to evade the detections. And we have seen them using some of the commercialized model which are out in the underground forum. Since after, I would say after pandemic, they have increased their developing sphere. Like they have developed some of the sophisticated stealers that we have seen in some of the security reports out, such as like SAM stealers, Barodo stealers, Viet Credit Care. These are some of the information stealers that they have rigorously used in their campaigns. Since after pandemic, we are seeing a spike, and we are continued seeing them attacking the victims in their campaigns. And not only with the stealer space, we did see them leveraging ransomwares to make money. Like they are leveraging not a sophisticated ransomware encryptors or something. This is one of the example that we saw during our investigation. We saw them using Yashma ransomware. It is the sixth iteration of Chaos Builder ransomware. So, with this being said, we discovered a new group. We named them as Coral Rider. They are of Vietnamese origin, and they are relatively new, but they were active since 2023 with their motivation as data theft and hijacking social media accounts for financial gains. And they mainly targeted victims in India, China, South Africa, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Ukraine. So with their TTPs, some of the notable things that we observed, that they heavily leveraged on social engineering to get the initial access, and then have some sophisticated data exfiltration techniques. And they've used dead dropping techniques, as well as some of the commodity loaders. And if we talk about their arsenal, they used a couple of information stealers like Net Support Rat, Async Rat, Luma C2, Rad Mantis. And we also saw two new stealers that they started using, one of which is kind of loader, which we call them Rodbot, and another one is X-Line stealer. So we're gonna see a bit more on what these two new malwares and what are its capabilities in the upcoming slides. Apart from these Coral Rider, we also saw two other groups. They might not from Coral Rider, but we saw some of the similarities with the other groups, but they are of Vietnamese origin. One of them, they were running a campaign using PXA Stealer malware, and another one they were leveraging on Luma Stealer. So having said that, we are continued seeing them evolving with new tactics or like new scripts or new malware or a piece of code or modifying the existing stealer with an added functionality. And they continue to evolve in this cybercrime space. So now let's gonna dive into two case studies. I mean, the two campaigns that we analyzed. The first one was with the Coral Rider, that they were targeting victims in Asia and Southeast Asian countries. So I thought of taking up the attack chain to describe the campaign that speaks better. And in this first intrusion, in this campaign, we saw two different intrusions, and they had some overlapping. In the first intrusion, we saw them that they leverage link files and embedded with a PowerShell command that connected to a download server, which downloaded malicious HTA files, which was loaded on that. And that malicious HTA file was embedded with VB script and the PowerShell commands in that. And these PowerShell scripts, it acted like a decryptor, like first and second stage PowerShell script and the third stage PowerShell scripts, they acted like decryptor, like when the first stage PowerShell script ran, it decrypted and executed the second stage. And the third stage, we saw it somewhat interesting, that it has got anti-VM and anti-analysis technique as well as UAC bypass technique, which we found that interesting, especially with the UAC bypass technique that I'm going to discuss. And then the fourth stage is the downloader PowerShell script that again connected to download server and downloaded and run the rotbot loader. That's the intermediate payload that we found in this intrusion. This rotbot loader, which initially that it connected to the Google Docs server, where they had hosted an XML file with the Telegram bot ID and the token, which was downloaded and used by this rotbot loader to connect to the C2 to perform some of the reconnaissance activities. And interestingly, this rotbot loader also contained this PXA stealer binary in the resource section, and then it also reflectively loaded and run the PXA stealer binary, which in turn leveraged this Telegram token ID and the bot ID to connect to the C2 and start doing its stealing functionality and the exfiltration activities. So this is with the first intrusion that we observed. The second intrusion, there wasn't much difference, but instead of download server, here the change is they leverage on CDN cache and the CDN edge devices where they hosted the malicious HTA file. And another difference which we saw is with the payloads that they leveraged CryptBot, Luma C2, and Radmantis as the stealers in this campaign. Some of the CDN edge devices or the CDN URLs that we observed hosting different information stealer that we observed during the time of our research. And with respect to the overlapping with these two intrusions, to combine them as one campaign that the Coral Rider was conducting. So one of which is the technique with the initial phase, the techniques that they've used with the LNKs and the PowerShell scripts, and how they connected to the download server or the CDN cache, that overlap. And there was a significant overlap in the PowerShell scripts that they used in the two intrusions, which was kind of somewhat similar with some differences in the commands. And then the UAC bypass technique that they've used, and also the motivation. Like they were mainly looking for stealing victims' credentials and financial data. So I did mention about the UAC bypass technique, which kind of stood out for me, apart from all the PowerShell scripts and all those things in this campaign that we observed. So what they did was that they tried to abuse a COM object registry key, which is called a Curver registry key. So what it does and how it is related. So they mainly try to abuse a Windows helper program that is called fordhelper.exe, which is used to manage features in the Windows settings. And this fordhelper.exe leverage on a registry key called MS settings. And this MS setting registry key in turn leverages Curver registry key. So this threat actor created a prog ID, the COM object registry key called .omg, and wrote the fourth stage downloader PowerShell script on this registry key and configured that to Curver registry key. So when they instrumented in their attack chain, when they run the fordhelper exe, which in turn ran MS settings and then Curver registry key, that helped to execute the fourth stage PowerShell downloader script and helped to evade some of the user checkings. So this is one of the important things that we observed in this Coral Rider Actors campaign. And then about the payloads, the first one I talked about, Rodbot Loader. After we reversed and see, it was actually a customized variant of Rat client that they try to do a bit of modifications, and they implemented to evade the detections and perform recon, and also had a functionality to modify the internet proxy settings in that. And it also had the capability to load and run the X-line stealer that I mentioned while explaining the attack chain previously. And then about the X-line stealer, this was interesting. It was like a huge script, and then when we start analyzing its features, that first it performs the anti-VM and antivirus checks, and then we saw it has the capability to capture screenshots and steals credentials and financial data, targeted variety of browser, and to name a few like Chrome, Microsoft, Brave, Coco, Firefox. These are the browsers that they targeted. And their main intention is to hijack and steal data from victims' social medias, personal, business, and advertisement accounts from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And then we also saw them stealing Telegram desktop and Discord app credentials in that. And till today, we continued seeing these different versions of PXA stealers, where they are removing some of the features in different attacks, like they exclude some Telegram exfiltration part, as well as sometimes they use the Discord. So these are the things that we are continuing to see. And apart from these functionalities, about the exfiltration technique, that they used Telegram C2 bot to exfiltrate the data that through the URL or the paths, like using send document, send photo, and send messages through the Telegram APIs. So apart from X-line stealer that I mentioned, they used Cryptbot. Cryptbot, we all know the infostealers. It is since 2019. And used to steal browser, cryptocurrencies, and also the wallet cookies and credit card details. And we saw some of the Cryptbot samples that they've also targeted to steal credentials from password manager database and authenticator applications as well in this campaign. And they've used like VM Protect in some of the samples, and some of them were straightforward. And then apart from Cryptbot stealer, we saw them using Luma C2. This is also there in the underground market from many years, and used some custom obfuscation algorithms with this Luma C2 And we saw that there were C2 domains that are encrypted with symmetric algorithm that they've used, and there were around 9 C2s that this Luma C2 will try to connect to each of them with a specific intervals to steal and exfiltrate the victim's data. And with the stealing functionality with the Luma C2, it was almost the same, but the new addition that we observed in this campaign is that they also included to steal the Discord credentials that I mentioned. So these are some of the payloads. And the last one which we observed was Radmantis stealer. And they use Python executables as a loader to execute this Radmantis stealer. And they did it in 2 stages. The first stage is that they used a binary replacer, a code or the script that replaced the binaries using 0 to 9 and decoded the second stage. And in the second stage, they used Windows APIs to allocate the memory block and inject the Radmantis stealer into one of the targeted process. And during the process, like it unpacks and we observe the magic header, which is XS, and then some of the targeted process that we observed during the injection, that dialer as well as openwith.exe. This is about the Coral Rider, their campaign and their payloads. The next campaign that I'm going to discuss is with another actor using PXA stealer, and they're mainly targeting Europe and Asia. So with this PXA stealer, their main motivation is, again, stealing information such as like cryptocurrency wallets or the things, and from the password managers. And they also targeted VPN clients and FTP clients, some gaming applications, and also messengers, like a couple of messengers that we saw. So to talk about their attack chain, like how they did or achieve their action on objectives, like they leveraged on phishing emails, there was a zip attachment, and that zip attachment dropped some of the batch script as well as a Rust loader. But here, it required a human intervention that a victim has to run that Rust loader. And when a victim runs that Rust loader, which is masquerading as some of the legitimate executable, which was in the zip archive, so then it runs the batch script, and batch script did 3 activities. So the first one was that it connected to a hosting site and downloaded a portable Python executable with the name semantics.zip. And then it also downloaded and executes another Python antivirus script, like it used to evade some of the antivirus detections. And then the final is the PXA stealer. They named it as a PXA bot, like it used to connect the victims to their botnet server, but we didn't see any such like C2 communications or some commands that we are receiving from the other end. But then, when we see this Python executable being executed, these scripts, as well as the PXA bot stealer scripts, the PXA stealer scripts, it's an extensive stealer script which has got plenty of capabilities, which ran and again connected to Telegram C2 bot. So to talk about the functionalities, the stealer functionalities, firstly, we saw some evasion tactics that they use, task kill commands to kill variety of processes, including endpoint detection software, some network capture and analysis softwares like Wireshark, and some VPN softwares, cryptocurrency wallet application. They killed some browser instances, also some instant messaging application instances as well during their initial process of execution. And then with the harvest functions, we saw them targeting browser master keys using some decryption functions, and then login credentials credit card information, and autofill data information in the browser, then Discord tokens, and then the Facebook data. Some of those with the harvest functions or the harvest functionality of this PXA stealer. And then about the exfiltration, they try to gather all those data and rename the file before adding them to an archive before they try to exfiltrate the victim's data to the Telegram bot. And after they exfiltrate, they did some cleanup activities that they try to delete all the archives that they created during their stealing process. So this is about the PXA stealer campaign and the activities. So these are the two malwares, or these are the two stealers that we saw, which are somewhat relatively new, being used by these Vietnamese cyber criminals. And now let's see how we tell them that they are related to Vietnam or like Vietnamese criminals. And some of the artifacts that we found was related to PDB strings, where we saw the Vietnamese language or the names being used there. And then the threat actor's underground activities correlating with that of the campaigns that we analyze. And then some of the Vietnamese words that are being used in the binaries that were hard-coded. And then also the attacker's Telegram bot server environment, or the Telegram bot server account. And we saw one of the IP address that were based out of Hanoi, Vietnam. So about the PDBs, which you can see some of the PDBs that we observed with the Vietnamese names and the hard-coded words in the binaries that they were trying to translate all the fields that they try to exfiltrate from the browser to the Vietnamese name before they write into a text file to exfiltrate it out to the C2 environment. So here is the interesting thing. So while we are doing our research, we discovered some of the actors' Telegram accounts or the Telegram channels that they were operating. And in that Telegram accounts, we saw some of the screenshot. So we saw them using two Telegram bots, one they named as debug, and another one they were calling as online, where the debug they might be using to debugging, and online to receive all the victims' stolen information. And how we found that was like while we are closely looking at the debug bot, so we saw some of the screenshots which looks exactly similar to that of the online bot. And when we saw that, then we thought that at the initial stage they might be testing their own environment to see how the exfiltration is working fine. And apart from that, we also saw that there were some Windows hardware ID that was mentioned, and also the IP address I just mentioned that we saw here that was based out of Vietnam during the time of our research. Apart from these two screenshots, interestingly, we also found some other screenshots in their online bot. And one of the screenshot was of OneDrive space and the name of some folders that matched to the PDB strings that we found in the binaries. So this also showed us. And along with this, we saw some of the Excel spreadsheets, images, and that has this image is redacted, and that has got some of the important information like PayPal account details and all. So these were related to Coral Rider, and we also saw other Telegram accounts that were active, and we saw them that they are using it to sell the victims' credentials. Those were the two names that we saw. So apart from this, with respect to PXA Stealer campaign, the actor, we saw a handle name called Lone Nun, where he had some of the images related to the government, but We are unsure that is it related to some APT activities or like state-sponsored thing which is happening. But we saw these images, and they were running some of the private antivirus checker kind of things that they were doing. And along with that, their underground activities. This actor Lone Nun, he was participating in some of the other Telegram groups. And one of the groups that overlapped with the Coral Rider operators group, where they were trying to sell Facebook accounts, Zolo accounts, SIM cards, credentials, and some of the money laundering data. And in another channel that we saw, they were trying to sell some of the automated tools as well, like Hotmail batch creation tool or like Hotmail cookie batch modification. These are like email miners or some cookie modification tools. Not only the tools, they were also sharing the source code of these tools, and they were expecting their clients to send a serial key back to them so that they will provide a full access, which also showed that they were not selling off all these things for free. So these are some of the underground activities that we saw in correlation with our analysis of those campaigns, which also strengthen our assessment about these actors are operating or based out of Vietnam or of Vietnamese origin. So, to take away about these actors, like I said, they are demonstrating their efficiencies and their capabilities and some of the sophistications in their attacks or the techniques that they were using. Might not be par with the APT actors, but still they are using some sophisticated techniques as well as they are evolving with their bespoke scripts or the stealer scripts or some of the malwares that they're using, and they're actively active in the underground market. So what it says is that I would urge with the international security community should look at these Vietnamese cybercrime landscape or the cyber Vietnamese threat actors are not no longer limited to perform small-scale hacking or the regional type of attacks, that their impact is going global. And also, in future, like what we might see or expect is that they may leverage LLM models to enhance their techniques or eventually emerge as an initial access brokers, that the credentials that they are taking, they might turn up like an initial access broker to sell it to the other groups or the threat actors or the ransomware operators. So along with it, we also started seeing the Coral Riders that they have already dipped their toes in the AI threat landscape. We saw them distributing stealers like Luma C2 masquerading as a legitimate AI-powered softwares like Vietnamese regional softwares using SEO techniques. So they are evolving and they are up to the mark, which is, by saying this, I'm ending my talk today. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your attention.